Hey, third grade. So today we get to start a brand new unit in science. And you just finished watching a brain pop about changes to the earth. So before winter break and last week, we talked about rapid changes to Earth's surface. And what were those? Those were volcanoes, earthquakes, landslides, because those things happen really quickly. This week we're talking more about the slow changes to the Earth's surface. Earth's surface is constantly changing. That means it's changing all the time. And because of that, we get different things that happen. So I want you to look at these pictures of soil. Your warm-up today was, how do you think soil is formed? So you could always go to the store and go buy a bag of soil, but how do people make soil? Soil's in the ground, right? It's something that the earth makes itself too. We can make our own soil, but the earth already makes soil. So like under the grass outside, there's soil. And I encourage you that if you are able, if you have like a backyard or a front yard and your parents say it's okay, go look at what your soil looks like. So what do you think soil is made of? What do you think? You each should have answered this question. How do you think soil is made? There's different types of soil. Soil is different in each different, region. Our soil here in Texas is really different than the soil in Illinois, or even I'm sure the soil in India is totally different than the soil over here in Texas. It's all very different. So that's what we're going to explore. In fact, our I can statement is that we're going to explore how soils are formed. And there's different ways that happens. So we're going to figure out how soils are formed. That's our big question. So stay tuned, and I hope at the end of this unit you can answer that question. So soil is made up of a lot of different things. Some of the things that it's made up of is rock, broken down rock, and also dead plants and like dead animals. And I know that sounds super gross, but it's a really natural thing that happens. Plants die all the time when they're outside and they get broken up into little teeny tiny pieces. And we're going to see how that happens. So those processes is called weathering, erosion, and deposition. So today we're going to have like a little overview over all three of them. And then each day we're going to take one and kind of go a little deeper with it. So repeat after me. Weathering, erosion, deposition. So we're going to try to figure out, how do they change the earth? So we know how volcanoes change the earth. We know how earthquakes change the earth. But how do these things change the earth slowly? So weathering, erosion, and deposition are all slow changes that happen to the earth over time. Things like wind, water, plants, and ice may not seem like powerful forces, but over time they can create some big changes. Look at this really pretty picture over here. What do you see? And think about, like, how do you think this happened? I see like a big rock, right? And it's really pretty colors, actually. But how in the world did that happen? So what's the difference? Weathering is the slow process of breaking down rocks and minerals. Erosion is the movement of sediments or soil by means of wind, ice, or water. Deposition is when sediments or soil are dropped into a new location by erosion. So there are keywords for each of these things. Weathering is the breaking down. So if you're breaking something, it gets smaller, right? If you build a big, beautiful Lego creation and it's huge and it takes up half of your bedroom, but then you decide to break it, it gets smaller the more pieces you break off, right? So weathering, think of breaking down. Erosion is the movement. That's the key word for erosion. Erosion is movement. And deposition is when it's dropped into a new location. Another word for that you'll see a lot is called settles. So weathering is breaking down, erosion is movement, and deposition is being dropped. So we are going to kind of make a little scenario here to help us understand. So think of it like this to help you remember. So in the morning, you and your family, well, you have to think about it when COVID's not happening, right? Like think about it like you're going to school, your dad's going to work, maybe your mom's staying home, your sister's going to school, whatever. So weathering is like when your family separates in the morning to go to school or work. So you're like breaking apart. You're no longer going to eat together. Erosion is like when you are on the way to school. So you're moving, right? Maybe your mom takes you in her car to school. Your dad takes your sister to the high school, and then he goes to work, right? You're all moving. And then deposition is like when you're dropped off at school because you are then in a new location. It's my favorite way to learn about it. So you have a notes page that we're going to fill out together, and then we're going to talk about the different vocab words that go along with it. Okay, third grade. So you should have this page somewhere in your science packet. I'm not sure if you got a full page with 2 of these or if you just got half a page, but either way, you only need 1. So go find this if you haven't. Pause this video if you need to. All right, so we're going to read along I'm going to read along this. I want you to follow along and read with me. Weathering, erosion, and deposition are 3 processes that create changes to the landscape on Earth. Are these slow changes or fast changes? They're slow, yeah. Weathering is the breaking down of rock material over time. That is what tells us that it's really slow. It takes so long for this to happen, guys. It's not like it just happens super quickly, but it is happening all the time. Erosion is the movement of the sediments and soil from one place to another. Deposition is the settling of these materials in a new location. These processes are creating slow changes to the Earth over time. Landmarks such as the Grand Canyon were created over time by these processes. Forces such as water, wind, ice, and even plants can cause these changes. So just like in your Brain Pop video, Moby tripped over the tree, right? The tree was breaking through the sidewalk. That's a really good example. Even though the sidewalk isn't like a real rock, trees and branches can break through rocks and they break them up. Think about the Grand Canyon. I always now think of Paul Bunyan when I think of the Grand Canyon because we read that folktale about Paul Bunyan creating the Grand Canyon with his axe. But now we know that's not true. It's created through all these processes. The rocks got broken down, they got moved, and they got put someplace else. So now we're going to label the steps of this analogy. It's kind of like a metaphor where you're kind of comparing 2 things. It's kind of just like a little trick for our mind to match the processes. So label each part of this analogy with one of the 3 processes above. Underline the word or words that helps you. So in the morning, my family separates to go to school or work. Is that weathering, erosion, or deposition? They're separating. It is weathering. So you're gonna write weathering here in this box. And now, what words helped you? I'm gonna circle separates because it reminds me of how weathering is the breaking down of rock. Awesome. Okay, next. We move to school or work by car, bus, or by walking. Is that weathering, erosion, or deposition? It's erosion. Good job. And what word helped you? Move. Because you're moving, and erosion is the movement of those sediments. Okay. We arrive at our new location. Is that weathering, erosion, or deposition? Deposition. Very good. We are going to practice these vocab words a lot. We will be saying them a lot, we'll be reading them a lot, and we'll be trying to figure out what they mean. So what word is kind of like our keywords? Deposition is the settling of these materials in a new location. Very good. All right, I want you to go glue this in your science journal. Write the date on top, and you can title the page Slow Changes. Here, I'll write that down for you. I'm gonna write Slow Changes. So you're gonna write that. Don't write that on this page. Write it in your science journal. I don't have my science journal with me right now. So you're gonna write this on top of the page in your science journal, okay? So go do that. Pause this video because we have one more thing to do. All right, so you should have this paper glued in your science journal. We're gonna go over our vocab words one more time. So repeat after me. Weathering. Very good. Weathering is the slow process in which wind, rain, and plants break down rocks. So break down is our key word here. We'll be taking notes over weathering on Thursday, so you don't need to write this down yet. Okay, so we have weathering, and this happens first in the process. They kind of go in order. All right, next, repeat after me. Say erosion. So erosion is the movement of soil and sediment by natural means. Okay, so by natural means, that just means if you pick up a rock and you put it someplace else, that's not technically erosion, right? By natural means is like by wind or by water. Even a glacier could move rocks. We'll talk more about that. But erosion is the movement. Let's talk about what this word means. Sediment. Look at that. A sediment is a natural material that is weathered, deposited, and then settles. So all the sediment is, it's like the tiny pieces of a rock. That's what sediments are. You see the word, you're gonna see the word sediment a lot this unit. So say sediment. Sediment is really just the broken down rock that will be broken down, will be moved, and will be placed somewhere else. I'm gonna put this one over here because it doesn't really go with our order here. And the last thing that a sediment will do is deposition. Say deposition. So deposition is the settling of soil and sediment in a new location. So settling is kind of like our keyword here, or new location. So has anybody ever moved before? Like you've moved houses, maybe you moved to a different state or a different country. Maybe you just moved to a different apartment or a different house. So when you move somewhere else and you make your home there, that's called settling. You are in a new location. So that's exactly what deposition is, the settling of something in a new location. So it's now in someplace new. There is a super fun YouTube video that I'm going to have you guys watch, and we're going to watch it a lot because it really helps us. So as you watch it, I want you to learn the moves. We don't have a science Zoom this week, so that's sad, but I want you watching this video and learning all the moves so that next week you could come back and show me or your teacher the different moves of weathering, erosion, and deposition. So pay very close attention during that YouTube video and practice it. You can teach it to your parents, your stuffed animals, your siblings, your neighbors. Go shout it out on your porch or on your balcony. Just go practice it so that we can come back and do it during our Science Zoom next week. All right. Thanks for listening. You guys did an awesome job today.